Time to do some sketchy shit. Doo-dah, doo-dah. Hope I get away with it. Oh, da doo-dah day.
Hi, I'm Dan Hollifield. Welcome to Last Man Standing. I don't have the faintest idea how we're going to follow Stupid O'Clock. If you didn't watch Stupid O'Clock, you missed it, but thankfully it was recorded and you can watch it on the replay. That said, it was not only informative, and there were bits and pieces that were geared to help people that we know and love, but it was so far beyond ridiculous most of the time that I could not keep a straight face, and nobody's comments got read. I did my best to flash them up on screen, but ah, okay. Let's just go there. Here's Joe and Aunt Donna, and we're going to try and not be the green room for Saturday night or Friday night, so Thursday night. Excuse me. Let me call the roll. One day of the week has to stick.
And regarding your earlier statement, that's okay. Those of us in the chat just entertained ourselves.
Well, it was just sometimes the flow of the conversation
Goes too fast.
and it does not lend itself to being interrupted by the absolutely stunningly witty comments. And some of them were stunningly witty, let me tell you, in the chat. It works. It works.
It works. Before we get too off, oh wait a minute, there's no rails around here. Can we go back to the last subject you were talking about on Stupid O'Clock about the One Hail of a fundraiser?
Oh, yes, please do. If you've still got that link, because I don't have access to it in this room.
I don't know if it'll work since I don't know if it'll work as a link since I don't have a thing.
I can
see it, but anyway,
Rich threw it in the private chat. If you can copy and paste from
okay.
there, Dan.
Let me see if I can. Okay. Copy. Yes. Now, when I put this in here in our comments, it's going to post several times. So
Yep.
forgive me, but I don't have access. YouTube will not show me the link to my show, so I can chat on a different device. So
Yeah, that's me, Rich. I don't have a wrench either. Anyway, as I was going to say, we are already up to $1,985 in just since Tuesday.
there we go.
There
There
you
we
are.
go.
It took a minute, but we got it there. I'll just leave that there for a little bit.
This means that Brian already has to do an extra clever title pending because he's promised to do an extra show with a special guest for every $1,000 donated. We watch
Means he's
any
$15 from the second one.
yeah, watch any show that has anything to do with Brian or Michaela and myself. Uh, there's goodies going
Mm-hmm.
during the live show. During Comic Book Spectrum, we had 2 books from Glenn Fleming. We had Eric Hawkins, the Eric Hawkins, doing sketches. Uh, just several goodies. People have donated books. I myself have donated a couple of books. If you pay $20, you'll get 2 from me. I think Susan Teasdale, I think's her name, has donated 3. If this series of hers, if you donate 25, this is a small amount just to get her books. I mean, really. But yeah, get out, share the info on Facebook. Tell people they need to be in these live chats. And then we've had people who met the but they needed to you get something and then say, give that to the next person. It's really nice.
Donna, your sound just got muted.
Yeah, you sound like you're in a tunnel or like your microphone shifted on you or something.
Can you hear me now?
There you are.
There you go.
Okay. But yeah, we've even had somebody meet the witching again.
Kidding.
No, you're good.
Don't
You're
make me
good.
come over there, Richie.
Oh, yeah, threaten him with a good time.
And if you're
But,
driving to see him, you might as well stop at me first and grab a little bit of the shine. But go on.
And say how you
can't
trade.
have the shine when I'm by myself.
Trey and I are here. You wouldn't be by yourself. So
Well, you'd have to make sure that I only drank half the quart jar.
The top half or the bottom half?
The middle half.
The middle half.
I'm talented. What can I say? And look at
that's
this.
nice.
Look what Donna says. She's a little bit of a teaser.
Mhm.
That's very nice.
I do have on the Independent Creators Directory website, I've got Amy's profile front and center at the top of the thing for the GoFundMe.
Do this.
I do have links to all her books on there, and I think to her author website. If not, I need to add that.
Yeah, I don't think I have that.
But I'm going to be on my show on Monday nights. I'll have the banner going like Dan does right now with
Yep.
the link.
I figured that's not obtrusive to the screen real estate there. And
Yeah,
besides,
that's
it's
pretty
for a
good.
good cause. We'll just leave that running for a while.
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out what I could do. But
And any shows you guys are on and promoting this, like if it's going to be like a special, kind of like what Nick did with BKM, or what you guys did with Tidbits and Scribbles Tuesday night,
mhm.
let me know, because I'll stream it to my channels also via StreamYard, just sharing my desktop, because the audio does come through.
Okay.
So I was able to stream the whole Tidbits and Scribbles to my channels also. I think I had a whopping 3 viewers, but it was
Hey.
on YouTube, it was on Facebook, it was on Twitch. So
Every little bit helps.
yeah.
And
Tidbits and Scribbles had quite an audience this last Tuesday.
They did. I wish I could have been there to actually stay for the whole show.
I'm sorry I wasn't able to show up, but my wife dragged me to a family function, so that
Yeah, I do
sprang
that
up
to
the
Carl
day before.
sometimes. Carl claims I did that to him today. We went to visit Mike in the nursing home, which is about an hour and a half away.
yep.
But
How's he doing?
fingers crossed, he should be getting out next Friday.
Nice.
All right. And this is the link to Amy's what service was it, Rich?
Her book formatting. It's
Book formatting. Yes.
Yeah.
book formatting, book trailers, graphics, and occasional ghostwriting. Oh, at an affordable price. I don't still have the website up.
That's okay. I copied, and if you are looking for any of that, and a lot of independent creators will be, this is a very good source. I mean, seriously, very good source. And I'll bring that back up over and over again. But
Yeah, I figured I'd slip that into the private chat so Joe could take that and toss it on the indie creator.
Yep. I'm going to do that next now that I got this refilled.
And folks, this is serious. I mean, I bought a house for less than what they are owing right now, and this is after the insurance is paid. What the insurance is going to
Mm-hmm.
pay. So they really need the help.
Well, and they both were off work so much and so often. Thanks to being off work, Amy's at her second or third job since 2020 because her work previously couldn't keep her on. Fortunately, the job she's at now is one she can do from home, and will be there even when she gets ill.
Dawn, you interest me strangely.
No, my comment about the creative as hell, putting it in the private chat so that Joe
That's
could
what the
grab it.
kids are calling it nowadays.
Yes, well,
I'm too sober for this.
That's what they used to call
welcome
their
to the warm up
podcasts.
for the green room tomorrow night.
And as you can see over my shoulder, we are stocked and prepared.
Stocked and locked. All right.
Mm-hmm.
There's another way to say that, but I didn't yet.
Me.
Nose warmer. I'm glad my mother doesn't watch this show. Who am I kidding? I'm glad my mother's not in the green room.
Oh shoot, my mother would just shake her head and say, "You're just like your dad." And then my dad would shake his head and say, "You're just like your mom." And I'd be like, "One of you's got to take the hit."
Heavens. I don't think we're off the rails. I do think we got distracted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. How about that Babylonian Tupperware? One day I'm going to remember where I stole that line from.
I hear it
Aladdin.
doesn't seal.
Really?
I believe it was Aladdin.
Okay.
Still fresh. Um,
No,
Rob-
it was Robin Williams.
yeah,
was
Robert
Robin
Williams and Aladdin.
Well, I got it from one of his
Okay.
comedy concerts. So hey, whether it was before Aladdin or after, I cannot tell. But oh dear.
Mm.
And I've still got to go to work in the morning.
Yeah.
Well, 12 more months. Yeah, I'm counting. Well, I don't have my little spreadsheet here with the actual calculator, so these things will reach their penultimate soon enough. Believe me, each week is going by faster and faster now. So it's a little bit scary. Um, I've spent almost half a century having this little safety belt of a weekly paycheck. And the thought of not having that anymore and having to depend on the beneficence of the company I work for has never been my strong suit. I kept thinking the entire time I've been working there, they're going to find a way to declare bankruptcy and steal everybody's retirement money so nobody gets paid. So far, they haven't done it. I mean, they've been in business for 280 years. Maybe they want to keep going. I don't know. Maybe. I'll see. I think that's the main reason why a lot of the folks that are I've worked with for so many years are when they're retiring, they're taking the lump sum because they don't trust the monthly payments to keep coming in, so they want to go ahead and get it all now, even though it's a smaller amount. I don't know
Well,
the
your
most
lump sum
logical.
versus your annuity usually is. So.
Yeah, well, I did the math, and the monthly payments for 20 years would just a little bit over the lump sum. But the lump sum, if you didn't have anything else, would only last about 10 years of what I normally get paid now. So I've been working this thing with different spreadsheets and trying to keep track of how much we spend and everything else. And I believe we don't have anything to worry about. I really do, because our monthly expenses with everything and being extravagant for years now is less than $3,000 a month. And according to the different payout plans for the 401k and the pension and the Social Security, we should be getting a comfortable amount over that. If not quite a bit over that. So I don't know what I'm worried about. It's probably that I'll screw up the paperwork somehow. We'll see. I'm not very bright, so I don't play dominance games. So that's foreign to me. But it's their bread and butter. I just want to be able to make sure the lights stay on. We got enough to eat, and I've got the freedom to sit and write down all the stories that pop in my head, so that later on, when somebody finally gets around to reading them, people will be entertained. Not looking to be the next Stephen King. I just want to tell my stories and hope people enjoy them.
I like your stories better than Stephen King's.
Well, mine usually have happy endings.
Everybody loves a good happy ending.
And some romance, too. Cut out the dirty shit so my mom won't be embarrassed when she reads it, because she's always going to read it.
Just hope that Michaela's happy accident of the 10 pages that they shouldn't read somehow doesn't get published in that book.
It has been. It's just that particular relative has not bought a corrected copy yet. So let's not spread that word too far and wide. Michaela seemed a bit worried that might actually occur one day. And if you get them electronically, Amazon might update it with a corrected version without anybody knowing.
Viking Molecule?
8-ball tipped on its side. So it's an infinity symbol instead.
Lazy 8, yes.
So I'm thinking
looks remarkably like Hagar the Horrible.
Kind of, yeah. But for the longest time, I've always gone by behind the 8 studios, because most of my life I seem to be behind the 8-ball. So I'm playing with ideas of that for the logo.
There you
go. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why my music is published under
I think so, Chris.
Studio D. Back when I was young and impressionable, I found out that Jimi Hendrix had a Studio A, B, and C in Electric Ladyland. Well, not being egotistical, but I go, okay, I'll put up Studio D. It's been a mainstay of everything since the late 70s. So nobody's complained. And several people have bought music, so I'm feeling good about that.
One of the things I was working on earlier tonight, see if I can do this wrong way. That way. There we go. Got another desk.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually do my coding from the Mac without having to remote into it. And now I've got a webcam and stuff on order, so I can set up a second monitor and stream from that also at the same time, hopefully. Either that or it's going to catch fire. I'm not sure which.
Both.
Yeah.
And
That's
it'd
okay,
be like the little cartoon of the dog sitting there in the room on fire. Go, this is fine. This is fine.
Oh, we blew a fuse down here in the basement earlier. And when I say
bet
blew
the
a fuse,
was happy.
But when I say I blew a fuse, I literally mean a fuse. We are still unscrewing fuses in this house.
Oh Lord!
Yes.
You tell me you've replaced the Edison Mazda wiring.
Not yet. Most, I would say 95% of the outlets in this house are just 2-prong.
That's my house. Of course, I think my house is probably a little older than yours.
No, Rich. No jokes about Mr. Spock from the original Star Trek. Didn't think I was going to be able to slip that one in, did you?
But still, although my house is almost 100 years old, we don't have fuses. We do have circuit breakers.
Yeah, so down here in the basement, most of the outlets are in the ceiling. So, like, the one that actually runs everything. Oh yeah, you can see it there. It's in the
That's not
ceiling.
a fire hazard at all.
No, not at all.
Somebody was lazy and just didn't want to run it all the way down the wall?
I don't know. This actually used to be where they played. They had a pool table down here. There we go.
Okay.
So, but most of the outlets are so old that they're a little on the loose side. Yep. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Let that one stew for a second as I keep going. And we have one outlet that wasn't used over in my wife's
sleeping
corner.
with 2 prongs.
It really needs that third to hold in there.
That's what she said.
Well, actually, the outlet I just showed you took a good screwing to actually hold that one in. So,
and folks, let me remind you that this is not the green room. We're being subtle now. Wait till tomorrow night when it gets laid on the line.
I still have to make that as a card in OBS.
Anyway, on the first floor, all of our outlets, except for in the kitchen, are in the floor.
Really?
Yeah. Without, until the waterfall incident, without plates on the top of it, just the open little box.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, no plate on it.
No, you said that's on the first floor?
Yeah.
They're in the floor? So
They're
do you guys have
floor.
like a full finished basement too? Or
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah. The basement, in fact, goes under all of the house. So my basement is probably the size of your house.
Okay.
I have a huge house. But yeah, when they ripped up the carpet to replace it after the waterfall, we found 2 outlets by the front window in the living room that had just been covered over with the carpet.
Oh, that's not a hazard at all.
Outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
we had a very, very nice electrician when they had to, redo the dining room because of the waterfall, and he went through and put plates on them.
good idea. Yeah, so what had happened tonight, we were trying to take the cover off from the outlet so that way we could plug in. I have one of the 2-prong to 3-prong adapters. We were going to plug that in and then put the cover screw back in to hold it in place, which is what I did on this one. As soon as she started to unscrew it, all of a sudden you hear pop and the whole basement goes dark. Except for her bathroom, which is apparently on a separate fuse. Not sure which one, because they barely have anything labeled. They have basement, furnace, and AC labeled. The other 3 fuses, I have no idea what they control. Which rooms they control.
I have a light switch in my living room that we have absolutely no idea what it's to.
I've got one of those down here in the basement.
Yeah.
I found out tonight I have not a clue what it actually controls. I know what it controls. It controls the light that's been burnt out for like 3 years now.
Either that or every time you flip it, 2 blocks down the road, somebody's going, honey!
That's got to be what happens here, because we've stationed people throughout the house. Like, okay, I'm flipping it on now.
Mhm.
Nothing. No. Okay. What about if I flip it off? Nothing. No.
It
The
got
only-
insulted, but it didn't do anything.
The only thing we can theorize is there must have been maybe a chandelier in the living room that had been taken out. But they left the light switch.
And then it might go to some of the utilities on the upper floor that y'all don't use.
No. Nope.
Check those out.
Yep.
It could have gone to the some of the outlets in the floor.
This is true.
Never thought about that.
That's a possibility.
Oh, my dear, you have been so misled.
Don, look at the people Dan surrounds himself with.
Voluntarily, of course. I'm just glad I don't have to pay them to be here.
Blink twice if you need help, Dan.
Trying to remember how to blink. No, I'm not being held prisoner. You should worry about whether or not they're thinking they're being held prisoner. I'm an evil bugger.
And innocent. I'm going to hustle that lie.
I'm a nice guy, but I'm an evil bugger. Let me tell you.
He said that with such a straight face for a minute.
Hey,
I'll be right back.
I was an actor for a year and a half of high school.
I'll be right back. I'm going to run upstairs and grab my boots because...
And 20 years, and 20 years in corporate America.
You said that. My wife didn't even hear it yet. She still twitched in the bed, I'm pretty sure. She just shot up in bed and went, there was a disturbance in the force.
Well, you're with the right crowd now, Don.
I am not evil. I am the hero of my own story.
Exactly.
Trouble is, I'm writing my own story.
Don't we all?
Let's see. Activate God mode. Oh, that's going to be boring. Control Alt F4.
Can I just start over? Format C:? Let's go for the quick one. Format C:.
Don't give me straight lines, please. It's not the right night for that. I have to hold back in the green room. I mean, tell
Joe, shit's so corrupt, we have to do a low-level format.
Oh, DOD wipe 7 times at least.
Believe me, gonna have to just totally rebuild all new parts.
I'm actually considering this weekend going through and backing up everything from all 3 hard drives and reinstalling Windows, and I just don't want to do it.
Y'all weren't in backstage at Stupid Clock when I showed off what I got in the mail today.
AOLC?
Okay.
Ooh,
Spiffy.
nice.
For my the other computer, not the one I'm using now, because it uses a different format hard drive. Yeah, the hard drive in my main desktop computer is getting a little bit long in the tooth. So I got a solid state drive. I got an enclosure to put it in,
Mhm.
and I got the USB to SATA adapter,
Mhm.
and I downloaded the program from the hard drive manufacturer to clone the original hard drive. So there's going to be a transplant going on in there.
Mhm.
Plus, I've got so many spare hard drives. I've even got a small format mechanical drive that still will be able to plug into things if the computer's got enough damn wires in it. So I
My-
could wind up with by the time I get through a solid state C drive so the damn thing will run faster,
Mhm.
plus 2 extra mechanical drives that it never had before, plus all of the external hard drives. I'll be looking at something on the order of 18 terabytes of memory on that of drive space on
Storage.
that computer. So yeah, and I've got the RAM maxed out already. It won't
Mhm.
hold anymore. As soon as I got the damn thing, I gave it the online test and found out exactly how much it would hold, and bought that and shoved it in there. So
Well,
Tim Curry doesn't have a monster this good.
this is my little black book of thumb drives
I've got several of
of
those.
various sizes that either have tools to fix things, various versions of Linux. I think one's a Windows. Actually, I need to probably make sure one of those is a Windows 10 loader. And then I'm actually doing the smart thing and backing up all my apps that I'm creating to an external.
I think we broke Rich and Donna.
And yes, Richie, yours is bigger.
Oh man, this is the geek version of major. Never mind. Not the green room. Not the green room.
Oh, tools.
Oh, mine's out in the truck.
Yours takes a truck to carry it around. You win.
I'll see your tool set and raise you this. It's actually a screwdriver set that has a little cartridge in it. It's actually got 3
Pocket
different
socket.
cartridges. And this one happens to be the flathead set.
Yeah, that'll come in handy.
That's what
Well,
she said.
yeah, it's actually got 3 other cartridge sets. One's Phillips, one's the various like star heads, like the T6 and all that, and then
Yeah.
one is something weird that I will probably never use. But
So will I.
I have a perfect riposte to that, but I cannot say it in public. You ever have one of those days?
mhm.
All the time.
But yeah, in my computer, I upgraded it this year. I put in
I'd
one
be
of the
happy if I can
NVMe.
downgrade it to one of those days instead of one of those years.
Ever have one of those lives?
Right?
First time?
Yeah, I put an NVMe 2 SSD in my computer this year, which greatly helped the speed. Even though it already had a solid state drive in there, the boot time is phenomenal on this thing now. But they only put a 250 gig hard drive in there for the operating system.
Yeah, that's what I'm facing with this
Which
thing.
Windows was eating up the majority of that, so it's like, well, I guess I got to upgrade.
Well, that's why I went ahead and got a terabyte for what's going to be the boot drive.
Yep.
I figure Windows is going to eat everything, no matter how big it is. I could have the 10 terabyte hard drive plugged in there, and it'd still eat it all.
Yes,
And-
Rich, I went there too.
Didn't we all? Say it, Dan. Not the green.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have been warned. Join the green room at your own risk. And I promise you, I hold back there, just not as much as I do here.
Yeah, you didn't hold back that one night. We all appreciated it.
Y'all wanted me to go one night without breaks, and I did. And
it was wonderful.
Yes, that's what she said.
Yes. Yes, I did.
I like him and all, but I kind of wish I could have seen that. But I was busy officiating a wedding.
Yeah.
And they're still married.
So far.
Rich, I just realized what shirt I'm actually wearing. You'll appreciate this. Oh, come on. Go down
All
for
I
once.
see is, okay.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Okay.
Never forget.
That's not what I thought the middle one was, but okay. Oh, I was sitting here, it's just showing the upper half of it, and I'm like, what's he got on his shirt?
The upper half is all that fits on the camera, dear.
As
That's what she said.
As I'm cutting out
Batteries not included.
As I'm cleaning out my dad's closet, I'm hoping I'll be able to forget. Sadly, my sisters are.
Your sisters are what?
My sisters have told me that will be my job, is going through all the old media and figuring out what's home movies we want and what's home movies we want to destroy.
I'd slip them a few
come
of the
now,
ones that
come
should
now.
be in the
Your
destroy pile.
mom and dad can have their own OnlyFans. What could it hurt now?
My sanity, what little of it there is.
I told you I was evil.
I've stumbled across some of those films.
Yes, I remember that story and the look on your face.
So Richie was always really good at finding the Christmas presents. So my sisters would always send me on missions to find out what the parents got us for Christmas. Well, one day I come out from under the bed with a bunch of tapes. Yes, not store-bought porn.
It wasn't the Sound of Music, was it?
The clue should have been that they were under the bed.
They were homegrown, starring mom and dad.
And I respect them more and more.
And they're zooming, so I wonder who was holding the camera.
Now, that is an angle that I had not considered before.
Yeah.
Because back when my parents were making those kind of tapes, there was not a remote zoom.
There wasn't an auto zoom, yes. Okay.
And sadly, it just kicked in just now that I'm like, there was zooming. Who was the third person in the room? What's in the box?
I don't know, but if you need a
Actually,
soundtrack,
I already know what was in the box. My
Yeah.
father.
Exactly.
I don't know, but if you
I-
need a soundtrack for the historical record, hit me up. Boom, chicka, wow, wow.
I'm sorry, Donna. Did I break you?
Not yet. I
No,
was just
but
going to say,
she's severely bent and twisted, but she came that way.
I was just going to say, the fact that it was under the bed should have told you, because that's where my dad kept all his
I was 10.
magazines.
I didn't even understand that stuff yet.
I was 10 too, and I still knew that's where my dad kept his magazines that I could go and read. I mean,
Understood it very soon after that, but
At that age,
I still
I
remember.
already knew who Betty Page was, and I was in love.
I still remember. I still have vivid images of this one magazine that my dad had with this naked lady and little baby mice on various parts of her body. And I'm like, why would she want a mouse there? Is that mouse going to bite her titty? I mean, yeah, I was like only 10 or so.
At least
be
they weren't
careful that
gerbils.
never mind.
Oh, there are things that I know that they're secrets that should not be told.
They better
I've
be
been
careful,
entrusted with
or the
information.
kitty's going to get them.
Ah,
I didn't catch what you said, Rich.
They better be careful, or those mice better be careful, or the kitty's going to eat them.
Mm-hmm.
again with
Yeah.
the straight lines.
I mean, that was over 50 years ago, and I still remember those pictures as if they were right in front of me right now. So
Young
then
and
I started
impressionable,
getting.
I imagine you were.
So then I started getting under mom and dad's bed more often when they were not home.
It would have been a little bit more embarrassing if you got under the bed while they were home.
Ironically, none of us
Oh,
kids ever walked in on my mom and dad. My foster brother's the one that caught them in flagrante when he was in college.
oh, and he was old enough to understand what's going on, and he still walked in the room.
Well, the way the front room and their bedroom was set up, you couldn't see into their bedroom until you got in the doorway.
Mm.
But there was a full-length mirror outside why it was in the living room instead of the bedroom, I have no idea. But it showed that dad's feet were in the bed. So he's like, oh, John's taking a nap. I'll wake him up. And he gets to the doorway, and John wasn't taking a nap.
I can't even think of a way to put that delicately, so I'm just going to file it away for tomorrow night. if we ever get this train of thought back into service again.
Where we're going, we need no rails.
It ain't rails I'm worried about. It's the telephone police.
It's people getting railed. I've arrived home from work. Almost caught me on phrasing again. I arrived home from work a couple of times, and back then I didn't have a key to the front door, so I had to go through the garage, which means I had to come into the house through. Phrasing. Get into the house through the laundry room, which was right across from Mom and Dad's room, and yeah, there were a few nights that getting home from work, I'm like, oh, hey, get upstairs really quickly. I know what's happening. I do not want any more scars. And what's even scarier, when you're a junior. So when your mom's calling your dad's name, she's calling yours too.
Never thought about it in that particular circumstance before.
Mm-hmm.
My being named after my father is the source of so many scars, it's not even funny. I'm not the first Richard D. Asplin Jr. Shortly after my eldest sister was born, my mom got pregnant again, got pregnant with twins. Twins never really fared well in our family. Mom had them premature, and one lived for 4 hours, one lived for 8 hours after birth, but both of them passed away. Kind of a good thing for me, because mom and dad were stopping at 3. So if they would have lived, I wouldn't have.
What you're saying is that when it comes to names, your parents were heavily into recycling?
My father really wanted a junior. So
Yes.
technically, I'm Richard D. Asplin Jr. the second.
That would look really awkward on a birth certificate.
I kind of like that, though.
Because my brother did have a birth certificate. Flash forward a few years till Rich's birth. Now flash forward a couple more years till Richie can actually read his name, but not figure out what dates on a tombstone mean. And we're up in Wisconsin visiting the family graveyard.
Mm-mm.
And I see Richard D. Asplin Jr. Do I have to stay here?
Yeah.
Yeah, that trip was not a happy trip. But yeah, interesting
my dad's
stuff.
name. I usually broke up with guys because they became my parents' best friend. We'd break up, and the guys would still see my parents.
My ex-psychopath, I used to still go over to her parents' house for lasagna because her father would make lasagna just for me to come over to have lasagna. And I think a little bit just to mess with her. Because he was dead set, no pun intended, that she was out to kill him. So he's like firing back all the time. So my ex-psychopath's father was a former homicide detective for the county police. So I didn't realize he was behind me, and my ex-psychopath did something to piss me off, and I just said, it's not murder if they can't find the body. And he just leaned forward and whispered right in my ear, pigs eat everything. I'll show you where to dispose of the body. She was so pissed.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, guys. Trying to multitask here. Well, I'm trying to listen to the conversation here. Nick's got a live stream going right now. He's doing some art.
When is Nick not doing art? Everything he does is art.
And he brought up a good point with the whole thing going on that we were talking about on Stupid O'Clock with the license for D&D.
Oh, yeah.
I probably need to redo to the apps I have out. So I think I did list them as like D&D character stat and dice rollers.
Hi.
An interesting thing. So, crap, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the gentleman who actually wrote the original OGL is working with others to create a base system, which is very much like what Nick was talking about the other day on Wednesday on Never Mind the Furthermore. Just a base system that is in perpetuity going to be held free, open source like Linux. So, he is working towards that goal as basically a middle finger to WotC.
Well,
He is the gentleman that actually drafted the first OGL.
I actually just saw something on Facebook, and it's actually something Nick's talking about on his stream a little bit right now. Is Paizo just came out with the ORC license?
Because 2E is different enough from PF2E is different enough from 5E that they shouldn't be able to come after them in any way, shape, and or form. They can probably go ahead and nix the OGL in the back of their stuff.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
I don't know, but I just realized, because I do know a little bit about what they're talking about, but just not enough to make an intelligent comment, which is, par for the course for me. But I
Wouldn't
just
that ever
realized
stopped us?
that if Wayne Barlow ever figures out what I did in a couple of my stories, he's going to own my house and my car and everything else that I've got. Oh, Lord. I was shameless. Well, I only steal from the best, damn it.
Okay, Donna, do you actually want me to explain the OGL situation, or are you just like, all right, next?
I take it as a programming thing.
Gaming,
No.
actually, Dungeons and Dragons.
Gaming. Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
when they went to Dungeons and Dragons 3.0, they created the OGL, the Open Gaming License, so that anyone can use the basics of Dungeons and Dragons. They just can't use their trademark stuff. They can't use Beholder. They can't use Mind Flayer, Displacer Beast, and a few other things, like any of their copyrighted IP.
Mm-hmm.
But you can still use the base core of the system to make your own gaming stuff. And a lot of companies did this. Green Ronin, Kobold Press, Kobolds. And, it was going strong. It was doing very, very well. And a lot of companies were basically just using this OGL. And the current OGL was 1.0A. So they had 1.0, then they clarified a couple things and made the A. So it wasn't really different enough to become a new version of the OGL. It was just, clarifying information that was in the original to make it a little easier for people to digest. So basically, they're able to use the rough ideology of the game without having to pay a royalty fee.
Okay.
Now, when Wizards of the Coast went to 4th edition, a lot of folks didn't like it, didn't want to go. So Paizo, who published Dungeons Magazine and Dragons Magazine, that had a bunch of interesting stuff in it for folks to use, asked if they could go ahead and continue 3.5 as Pathfinder under the OGL. And Wizards of the Coast was like, go for it. So the Pathfinder rules set came out. It took about 10 years before Pathfinder to actually create a 2nd edition of theirs, but they made a major departure in the rules. And from what I understand, a lot of the stuff for 1D&D, which is going to be 6th edition Dungeons & Dragons, actually has a lot of stuff that came out for a lot of ideology that came out in 2nd edition Pathfinder. So they're still somewhat married and same ideological processes, but 2 different versions of Dungeons and Dragons came out, and Pathfinder was still on its first. But now with the 1.1, which is supposed to now become 2.0, I don't know what other language in there is being changed as of yet. They are having a tiered system. If you are making between $50,000 and $750,000 off of your information or off your game properties that you're creating based off of that 1.0, or actually 1.1 now, OGL, Open Gaming License, then you will owe a 20 to 25%. Actually, no, I take it back. It might be over $750,000 that they owe the 20 to 25% royalty. And of course, that's before any of the bills get paid. So that 20 to 25% might be their complete profit margin and then some, meaning they're going to fold. But the really sinister stuff that is in this new Open Gaming License is they changed something that was 900 words and made it 90,000 words. It's now a 15-page document where it was barely a 2-page document before. But some of the language that they inserted in is, if you create product using the Open Gaming License, then we will own the IP to that. So if you fold and go out of business because you had to pay that huge, unsightly royalty, then not only do they get that money, they get your IP and can publish it themselves.
So basically, if
Oh.
you're successful, eventually they will own you.
They will own your property,
Mhm.
which is shitty all hell.
Yep.
It's almost like working for some companies. You create something while you work at that company. It's on their time, and it's theirs.
If you use their internet, if you use their devices, my firm actually has that as a clause in our employment agreement. If you're working on IP on company time, using company resources, that IP is now theirs. Now, my lunchtime scribbling on one of my notebooks in the break room, I'm fine, because it's my notebook that I bought. Or if I bring my laptop in or my tablet in or something like that, as long as I'm not connecting to the guest network and going out, because that would still be using their network resources to get out. If I'm just tapping away on my copy of Word, they can't do dill.
Now, in the contract that I signed in 1978, there was a clause that said, whether I am still employed or no longer employed for any reason, if I invent anything that has to do with insulation, my company owns it automatically.
Mm-hmm.
That's shady.
Well, it was 1978.
I've even heard of
computers didn't exist, really.
I've even heard of corporations that even if you invent it at home on your own time, your own equipment, your own everything, if it's anything that your company might produce, it's theirs.
Pretty much the same thing, yeah. But thankfully, although I know an awful lot about insulation, I've never invented anything to make it better or actually anything to do with it. The only thing I've done is create ways to do better testing.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
OGL 1.0A.
Nobody outside the industry has got any interest in, and I would
1.1.
not mind at all if my company owned those things, and other people had to pay them. But that'll never happen because nobody pays any attention to what I do. I mean, the test results, yeah. How I make the job easier for myself, nobody has any idea, much less cares. it doesn't have anything to do with actually making stuff. It's just codifying the testing procedures, which they've been glad to take advantage of when it suits their purpose, but it's not anything that would gain them any money
Mm.
at all.
Yeah, luckily with my company, with the apps that I created for construction, when I told them that I was making them and I was going to put them on the App Store and everything, they're like, "Okay, cool." And that was it.
Yeah.
Because I told them, I said, I'm creating it not only for us, I'm creating it for NDOT too. So that NDOT folks can use them out in the field, because they're not allowed to purchase anything on their state phones. So if I made those apps 99 cents, they wouldn't be able to use them.
Mm-hmm.
So I made them free, which, since I was making them for my company also, kind of seemed like the right thing to do. But
Yep. The only thing I've done that would probably be worth any money is writing a Excel spreadsheet to do uh, somebody's budget at home,
Mhm.
balance their checkbook back when checkbooks actually were a thing, and whatever. But the company has no interest in that whatsoever, and
yeah,
I have I have very little interest in selling it because it's so simple anybody could do it if they wanted to take the time. I could probably post the stuff and give it away just to be a nice guy.
my company hasn't even asked for a copy of the code. I think our IT department knows what I was going through with some of it. I think most of them were like, "Yeah, we don't want to see that monstrosity that you created."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think once I retire, even though I made everything so simple that all you got to do is pull up a form and type something into it, and it does all the math
Mhm.
and cross references all the necessary information to tell you whether or not this test is successful or unsuccessful. Nobody's going to use it because I went totally honest. There's no wiggle room in here. This is the official, this passes, this doesn't sort of
Mhm.
thing that they've got in their own um, product specifications. And all it does is tell me, probably should tell somebody about this because it's kind of way low on the borderline, getting to the edge of not being any good. So it, it just makes my job easier for me. It's not going to benefit the company because nobody's going to pay any attention.
Mhm.
They deal in infinite shades of gray, and I'm dealing in strict black and white using their criteria. So they already own it. I don't care. When I'm getting into my last week or so before I walk out for the last time, I'm going to make a couple of copies on thumb drives, and I'm going to give them to the people that I am working with that I do believe would be able to understand what it's supposed to do and how it's supposed to make their job easier. And if my job actually is not eliminated when I leave, then that's all well and good. There's going to be a copy on the company network of everything It's theirs. I'm not going to have to deal with testing insulation ever again once I retire. So it's not going to do me any good. Um, so basically, if one of my coworkers actually does inherit my job, then anything I give them will make it far easier for them to do the job.
Mhm.
And they will look like Mr. Scott on the Enterprise because they will know everything without having to look it up because it's right there. You just type in the product code, all the stuff shows up. This is what it should be. This is borderline. This is call people because it's getting kind of iffy. And this is garbage that needs to be thrown away.
I
That's it.
utilize the Scotty rule whenever I create anything for the firm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it should only take me about 10 hours to do it. I'm going to tell them it's going to take me about 30 hours to do something for it because I know they're going to throw something at me last minute that's going to add another 10 hours, but I'm still going to look like a god in the end anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep. I tell them it'll take me 6 to 8 weeks. And I figure after the third hour, I've got it done. And I'm waiting on them to raise the stakes
Night, Tom.
and, and
Have a good
ask
night,
for
Don.
something. Yep. Oh, good night, Dawn. Yeah, the last man standing. Yeah, that's my job, but I fall down on that. So,
I wasn't going to say
Not so
anything.
much fall down as slump in the chair a little bit.
yeah, um, not the comfy chair. Uh, oh, nope. I'm hoping that if the job continues or the job has to be reinvented after I retire, somebody's going to get some benefit out of all the things that I've learned over the past few years. I
Mhm.
mean, I've been playing with computers since a TRS-80 was state of the art. So I picked up a few tricks here and there. Um, I've learned a few things. I didn't consider what I do to be real programming, but I've had programmers tell me, yes, VBA is actual programming.
Mhm.
I mean, I didn't. I did count
Creating
C
formulas in
plus.
Excel is programming. It's using logic and weird ass language that nobody else understands, but nerds.
No, it's algebra. That's
Some of it's code.
well,
Some of it is
yeah.
basic algebra. But when you get to if-then statements in a formula, you jump past algebra into coding.
Here's how I define coding. It is two things. The first is algebra because you're dealing with a lot of variables. The second, it's a foreign language. You're learning to speak that language no different than learning to speak Spanish or German or French or whatever. That's always been
Yeah.
my take on programming
And
or
when you get
coding.
shit wrong, it's called a syntax error.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Syntax is what language is based off of.
Yep.
Mhm.
And the company has paid for me to learn DOS and Windows 3.11 and Lotus 123 and Excel
I just realized I have better grammar in several programming languages than I do English.
That's not hard to do. Programming languages make sense. Human languages never make sense. Well, wait a minute. I'm prejudiced. I speak American. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to communicate. The purpose of
Yes.
a language is to facilitate understanding.
The mints make sense. And dollars.
Uh-huh.
But
Good night, Dawn.
not done.
But all of this stuff, I mean, I used to get, what was it, Compute magazine?
Mm-hmm.
All right, they used to have in the back pages, they'd have little example programs.
Mm-hmm.
Some of
Try
them were
this
done-
code.
Yeah, really. Some of them were written for Commodore 64. Some of them were written for Amigas. Some of them were, and I'm for fun. Somebody gave me like a waist high stack of these things, and I was trying to convert them to run on a TRS-80. There were differences in the way the different commands had to be typed out, the syntax, in order to get it to work. And I was converting from one thing to another, and I would usually be able to figure it out, but sometimes it took me all day. And that sounds like I'm bragging, but no, these were the very, very simple little applets, basically we'd call them now.
Mm-hmm.
Something to turn a screen a different color, or run a batch file in DOS.
Yep.
The computer fires up. Somewhere in there is a line of code that you put into the boot sequence that says, "Hey, I want you to do this this batch file over here. It's really simple, please." And then it would go through all that and do something special. When my oldest boy was a teenager, and while I was at work, his mama let him play on my computer, and he went online and found a source of girly pictures that were not the highest quality of a in a moral sense sort of thing. And she caught him and told me to do something to make sure he never could do that. I wrote a batch file that it popped up at the end of the boot sequence. And you got to remember, this was back when there was actually a key slot in the computer where you could turn the keyboard off and take the key away. So the end result of this batch file was that the screen flashed red and black and red and black 2 or 3 times, and then came up with a message: "You were about to format your hard drive. All data will be lost on this drive. Press any key to continue," with the keyboard turned off. Naturally, if you turn the keyboard on and hit any key, the boot would continue to open Windows 3.11. But the first time he ran into that, he was so terrified he was about to totally destroy my computer.
I wrote a couple batch files when I worked at NDOT because especially the construction department would somehow, and it was the way IoT had something set up, but they would just suddenly lose all their network drives. And I got tired of having to manually map those drives back in every time it happened. So I had 2 different files set up. One that was all the different network drives that everybody had access to. And then I had a separate file that I just had to switch out the username on because they'd lose their home directory also.
Hmm.
So I'd have to load the first batch file on, get all the other drives back in, then look, no, H drive is gone. Okay, let's load this one on real quick. Run that. And then they were fine again for anywhere from 2 weeks to a year.
Until they forgot to hold it over their head and shake it until it rebooted. Yes, Etch a Sketch is a thing. Now, one thing that I did know that I was actually dabbling in programming was when I was using MIRC as a chat program, and there were these things called scripts, to where you could type in a command and it would do things, and sometimes they were really nice things, and sometimes they were chaotic evil things. But and it turned out to be that I was actually learning C++, because that's what the scripting for those was written in. I didn't know it at the time, and that stuff, it's both extraordinarily simple and somewhat complex if you haven't run into it before. But if you know the it's not so much the syntax as it is the punctuation symbols that made everything work.
Yeah.
You could have different hierarchies of commands and things, and it would show up on your screen. You could just mouse over, click, and whatever it was that you had put in there would run. It could have been ASCII art. It could have been playing a sound file on everybody's computer in the chat room that also had that sound file under that name. If it didn't have the same name, it wouldn't work. But this was, back in the 90s. We were bored. We were young. We were.
I never got that far into the scripting on MIRC, because I used the same thing back then. The only thing I ever did was the alias scripts, where instead of having to type out the full, slash message, nick serve, identify, username, password, all that BS, I shortened it to where I just typed /ID and it sent that command off.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then I
yeah.
did one for all the different channels that I would normally join. I just type in / and like the server name, and it automatically join all the channels that I normally went to.
Yep. There were times when I was on 3 different server networks, or 4, and 3 to 5 different channels on each network. My screen was made up of these little bitty chat boxes, and all these conversations going on at the same time, and I'd have to make sure that I switch back and forth between them to carry on a conversation. That's how I learned to type, basically, and at some kind of speed, was being able to carry on simultaneous conversations with a dozen different chat rooms at the same time. And it was a good typing exercise, basically. Especially when you consider that I'm using 2 fingers on one hand and 3 fingers on the other, and still looking at the keyboard to make sure I hit the right keys. that was just fun. That was learning something, and learning things is usually a reward. Basically, you figure out how you can do something, you do it, you get good at it, and you get bored, and you look for something else to learn, and it snowballs.
Mhm.
Eventually, you get to the level that y'all are at, where you're writing code for programs, and I'm just going, okay, I'll just sit back here and do my little algebra, and I'll be okay. Nobody's got to see it but me. Uh,
Uh, I'm pretty sure the apps I made for construction, at least the portion where it actually will take all the data and put it into an email for you. I'm pretty sure if most app developers actually saw that portion of code, their heads would just go, because I know there's probably a simpler way to do it. I just could not find said simpler way.
I ran into the problem last year that I needed to make multiple backups on stuff when I closed out things for the day. And one of the backups was to a thumb drive. So I put the stuff in saved in like 5 different directories or something. And one of those was the thumb drive plugged into my computer to make sure I had everything just in case the company network went down.
Mhm.
I could pull the thumb drive out, take it to another computer, plug it back in, and still have access to all of my stuff and all of the records of all of the tests that I have done the entire time I had the job. And it only benefits me.
Mhm.
The company will never see any benefit in that unless they have a total network wide failure and stuff has to be restored. My stuff, I can restore it with a few clicks, and other than that, I don't. I have looked at everything I have access to, and I do mean everything I have access to, but I don't play with it. I don't meddle with it. It's still safe because, as odd as it may seem for me to say, I do I do have morals. I'm not going to play trickster on the company.
Mhm.
It's that's counterproductive. Too many people's lives depend on this. Too many people's livelihoods depend on this. I
Yeah.
can't play practical jokes. Um, all I can do is make sure my stuff is protected and easy to be reinstalled if by some bizarre chance stuff gets wiped
Yeah.
and the company needs it. I can put my stuff back. Their stuff
Yeah.
they're going to have to worry about on their own.
When I first joined with RQAW, it about killed me to have to call our IT department to have them install a printer,
Oh,
because I was so used to having admin access at Indot that you know that, and I'm an IT person anyway. It just pained me to have to send in a ticket and go, "Can you remote in and install this software, please?"
Yeah.
Hey guys,
Uh,
this is broken on my system. Okay, Rich, just do this. I can't. You took away my access.
mhm.
mm-hmm.
I sent them a list one day of just junk software and old printers and shit that needed to be taken off from field offices. And the head of IT sends me an email back. She goes, "You know how to do all this, right?" I said, "Yeah, I do." I said, "And it kills me every time I have to email you guys to do something like this." She goes, Give me a second. All of a sudden, my screen flashes. I see the mouse moving around. She goes into a few different screens, logs out. She goes, "Let me know when you're done. You have temporary admin access." And then it was about 2 months later that she just went to the CEO and said, "Look, let's just give this guy admin access. He'll handle the construction department. He knows what they need in construction anyway." She goes, "Half the time I have to call him and go, is this something they really need?"
hmm You're basically a consultant at that point.
hmm
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm a consultant working for a consultant. Consultantception.
There's a special program they use to create labels for the actual bags the product goes into,
hmm
and
Oh, please tell me it's written in COBOL.
I haven't the faintest I haven't the faintest idea what it's written in, but the person that was in charge of it, who is no longer employed by the company, gave me admin access to that. And knowing my company, those rights still exist if they ever needed somebody to go in and correct something, which I have had to do, or create something from scratch.
hmm
I, because I did a lot of computer graphics back when the internet was new. So I know how to do this stuff. And I know the way she was doing it. And I thought, that's the hard way, honey. I could show you a couple of things, but you you've got you've got the office. I don't. So
Yeah.
you do it your way. I won't insult your intelligence by showing you the simple way to do all this. And as far as I know, I've still got admin access to this program, and so far it's been years since anybody has said, "Hey, Dan knows how to do this. We need this thing edited." So they're going to do it on their own.
hmm
That's their prerogative. It's no problem. I really don't have time to do it, but in an emergency,
Yeah.
I can. But it's no problem. And there's other stuff where they had there was one thing that was uh, an official ISO form, and they were using 2 Xeroxes of a printout to create one big form. And I went ahead and laid it out as a brand new Excel spreadsheet and made it. I put drop down boxes where they had variables, this, that, and the other thing, covered all the bells and whistles I could, and had a fellow who was trying to get into management. So he told them, "Hey, I can do all of this." And basically, it was just data entry,
hmm
what he was wanting to do. So he basically wound up taking over 3 people's jobs. And one guy retired rather than share an office with this fellow. It's like he was being trained as a backup on one job and was asked, uh, do you understand the hexadecimal system?" And the guy goes, "Sure, sure." And the other fellow is skeptical and goes, "Okay, how many letters are there in the alphabet?" Aspiring management dude said 36.
Was he Russian?
No,
Was he going off of somebody else's alphabet and not ours?
no, he was from a little town about 6 miles away from where I'm sitting right now. And evidently, his ego had him convinced that he's a big man in this county and so influential. And basically, everybody that heard him say that goes, you know, if I didn't work with you, I'd never heard of you before.
Hmm.
I mean, nobody's ever talked about you in the rest of the county. Well, it turns out he was doing outreach for different churches and things and civic centers and whatnot. Just all volunteer stuff. But he thought that made him a big man. No, that made you a nice man, a good person. Didn't make you a power behind the throne, which is what you were aspiring to be. Now, he took an early retirement because he did not get a management job like he wanted. And somebody else bid on the job and found out this is 3 people's work. I can't keep up. I'm having to work overtime. I'm having to work weekends. They're spreading it back out to 2 other people besides the one that has the original job, just the way it used to be. So, and
Oh, the reason why that
one of those people was me, but I haven't been asked to take up those duties again, so I get the last laugh.
the reason why I brought up COBOL, there was I don't know if it's still in LaPorte or not, but there was a Whirlpool plant in LaPorte.
It closed down.
It closed down. The labels that they made in the plant was all programmed in COBOL.
I don't know what this label program was. I don't know what the programming language was, but it was really, really simple graphic stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't COBOL then.
No. I mean, this was so simple that if you knew what you were doing, you could have done it in Paint. But you wouldn't be able to save it as the kind of file that this label program needed. But basically, it was you could do it all, cut and paste. It was simpler to learn than Windows Movie Maker.
We're going to do a bit of a throwback. So easy a caveman could do it.
Well,
I miss those commercials.
Actually, the caveman retired because it didn't make him an executive, so they left it to the farm boy to do.
So, Joe, you made a comment that you don't back up like you should. One of the things Carl kept pounding into the counselors was, you need to back up, you need to back up. And they didn't seem to listen to it at first. So he actually created a you didn't back up dance. And you did not want to see Carl in the middle of your office doing the you didn't back up dance.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the things that I was talking about, backing stuff up to different directories and a thumb drive. VBA code lets you create buttons. You just click, and it goes to your little script and does all this shit. And you don't have to worry about it. And I've even got one. I've made an option on several of the spreadsheets that I have to use every day. At the end of the day, it's one of those back up and shut down. So it goes through all of the different safety belts that I've built into the system, and then it shuts the program off till I come into work the next day and start it back up.
Mhm.
And all I got to do is go click. Even a CEO could do it.
Yeah, you give a CEO so much credit.
Hey, I figure if they can use a mouse,
Again, you
Uh,
give a CEO so much credit. We all know. We all know it's secretaries who really do the job.
hey,
well, yeah.
now I have fangirls in the support staff there. Um, when I did the inventory things for trucks coming in or railroad cars coming in and dropping off raw materials, there were 2 or 3 people in the local office that were going, "God bless you," because I made it so simple. And if they came up with something new, there were drop down boxes to where they could modify everything and then save it as a different file. Brand new card. All I had to do,
Mhm.
get somebody that could type to put the numbers in, and basically you did a printout of the blank sheet, and the folks that actually deal with the railroad cars or the trucks or anything could just write the things in, give it to the person that has to do the data entry. They type it in. It's there. It's in the system. It's beautiful. It's perfect.
Mhm.
Everybody can do anything. There was a time when I was having to help do raw material inventory, where basically you walk around with a clipboard and you count everything. And I looked at the person that was in charge of this, and I go, I do about 45% of this every day. Would you like a daily inventory? Because I can set it up. I can, you can have every number that I get every day. She goes, no, no, no. We have to do this by hand. It has to be verified. Trouble
Mm.
is, there were a lot of people that were not doing the paperwork at all, or making up numbers for the paperwork. So the computer thought you had this much in inventory when actually nobody ever counted anything to find out what the actual number was.
We.
It,
Oh, go ahead.
well, except for me, I actually counted stuff.
So when I worked at Staples, for some reason, corporate thought it was a great idea to schedule our inventory during the middle of back to school season
Mm.
because we don't have a whole bunch of extra shit in the store at that point.
Hmm.
There was one year that Sharpie came out with those little mini Sharpie pen or Sharpie
Mhm.
markers, all about
Hmm.
yet big.
Yeah.
Yep.
We had those in a little round bin shipper. Every color had its own individual SKU.
Hmm.
Some poor bastard had to sit there it took him damn near the entire night, and he had to scan each UPC label on those. And because the UPC labels were damn near longer than the markers themselves, half of them had peeled off. So if he came across one that was peeled off, he had to pick one of the other ones up off the ground, scan it, keep on going. Yeah, that bin I think held about 4,000 of those markers.
Hmm.
Probably. Yeah.
Yep. The people in the storeroom, parts for maintenance and supplies for routine jobs, they actually wised up. they made a notebook with all the barcodes in it for everything they have in inventory. In case a physical item had a screwed up barcode, they could go to the notebook, flip over, scan that, go back to the inventory.
When I
I
was
don't know who invented it, but I know it wasn't somebody at corporate.
when I was temping at Quaker Oats here in town, uh, the lady I was temping for was one of the people who had to do the monthly inventory. And being in the office, we didn't do the inventory per se. Somebody else went out, counted, brought in the papers,
Mm-hmm.
and then you added them up. And of course, you had product that was on the floor, product that was in a truck, on the property, product that was in a truck between the plants, and you had to gather all this. And they had they had an algorithm that you followed where you go, okay, we'll do this much and this much and this much, and you did the math and came up with a number. And my literal mind is going, how can you have 500 of these when there's only 426 on the property? It just, I never could make that connection.
That was my point about people not doing the paperwork, because the computer was being told the guesstimates that people turned in.
Mm-hmm.
When you had to do the monthly inventory, you had to give exact numbers. And if your exact number did not agree with the computer, you were told that you were stupid and had to go back and count it again. And again, and again, and again, till it got right down to the wire for the actual inventory to be finished. And the person in charge said, okay, I guess the computer's wrong, and accepted your actual physical count rather than what they had been told, rather than the lies they had been told
Well,
for the rest of the month.
our computers had, they weren't guesstimates, they were what was put into the computer when they made the product. It's just, it's like I say, somewhere we're on trucks between plants. And my first time I'm there, I'm like, boss, these numbers aren't matching up. And she's like, oh, here's the formula that you use to make it match up.
Yeah, I
What?
hate those.
Okay.
Here's the stuff that's real. Here's the stuff that we have to lie about in order to make the computer look good.
One of our managers screwed up one year. Our inventory day was always the same day we got one of our shipments in from the warehouse. The day manager totally forgot we had inventory that night and accepted the truck into the system.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Yeah. We had two options. Either A, basically tell the customers they were on their own and pull everybody from the sales floor into the back to put stuff out on the shelves and into top stock, and then redo the top stock inventories because we actually did those. Or a couple poor bastards had to stay back in the receiving area all night and unload every pallet for us and count every item.
We had one guy that would go ahead and put stuff in the system before he took it to the endpoint where somebody else put it in the system. So you had two contrary numbers vying against each other. This is what the trucks said they had. This is what's actually in the inventory. The difference between the two was sitting on pallets that had not been delivered to the second point, where the second person could go, okay, yeah, I see that. I've got that now.
Yeah.
It threw the inventory off a lot. But thankfully, it was stuff that had actually been delivered. We had one guy that was trying to put stuff in that had not been delivered yet, but had been ordered. That threw the inventory way off.
Oh, yeah.
Because some of this stuff, it was not only not on a truck on its way, it had not made it to the truck to get on its way yet. It was still in the supplier's warehouse. But they were saying we already had it. Not the supplier, but the receiver. They were saying we already had it. It's in the system. No, it's not. It's not here. There's only 4. There's not 50. I can count to 4. I don't even have to take my shoes off. So frustrating. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
I had one night when I worked at Staples. I was the only person in electronics that night. I was head of the department too, but my other night shift person called off. We were busier than hell all night, down to like the last 15 minutes of the store being open, and I'm still trying to pull stuff from top stock, restock the shelves. Get a lady that comes in 15 minutes before close, needs a digital camera. Go through the whole, okay, what are you doing with it? What do you need? Get it narrowed down to a specific camera. I check inventory, out of stock. Shit. Go back, we figure out a different one, out of stock. Third one, out of stock. Fourth one says we have 9. Awesome. Now, our lockup area was maybe the size of my whole like computer desk area here. It wasn't big. I spent 15 minutes back there trying to find a damn camera that the system said we had. Our warehouse was notorious for occasionally saying, oh yeah, you've got X amount of these on the pallet. And we'd bust down a pallet and go,
No.
a single one. You know?
Yeah, really?
So I was thinking that maybe it was something somebody overlooked and just forgot to minus it out of the system or what. So I pull up because she had mentioned she was heading to LaPorte the next day. So I pull up their inventory, showed they still had some, called over there real quick because at this point we're at store closing hours. Managed to get them before they walked out the door. Told them, put one off to the side for her. Go back to her, and I told her, I'm sorry. It says we have 9 of these. I tore the back room apart. I can't find them. I said, but LaPorte does show they have them. I've already called them. They have one set aside for you. They open at 7 a.m. Just, grab it from them before you head to wherever you're heading. And I don't remember exactly what she said, but at that point I was done for the night. I looked right at her and said, I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't make one appear out of thin air. Now, mind you, I started there when I was 16. I was 24 before I had my first customer complaint, and it was her. She came in the next day, talked to the GM, and I came in. He was closing that night too. I came in. He's like, "Hey, I need to talk to you before we leave tonight." All right. Not thinking anything of it. It's about 2 hours before close. I go in the manager's office. I'm like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about?" He goes, "So I had a customer come in and wanted to, lodge a complaint against you. Something about not being able to make a digital camera magically appear." I said, "Well, first off, if I'm going to be in trouble for this, I told her I couldn't make it appear out of thin air." We're just going to get that story straight right now.
Yep.
He goes, "You're not in trouble." He goes, "I kind of figured you had a rough night." He goes, "This is the first complaint I've ever had on you in 8 years. I just want to be able to look at her if she happened to stop back in and say, 'Did you talk to that employee?' that I could say, 'Why, yes, I did.'" He goes, "So, that was it. Go back to the sales floor. Have a good night."
We had the conversation.
Yep.
Compliance achieved.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that point that I realized, okay, I've been in retail for too long. It's time for me to
Go somewhere else.
try and find something else. And that's when my buddy got me into InDOT.
So now you basically seal Jimmy Hoffa inside bridge supports.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. I shall plead the fifth of whatever's on my alcohol shelf back there. And
Oh, yeah. Never mess with somebody in construction. You could wind up being part of it.
Cask of Amontillado.
Exactly. For the love of God, Montresor.
yeah, because I can tell you right now, they're not. I mean, I could throw you into a pipe. They're never going to know for about 5 years before they finally get around to inspecting it again. At that point, you've either floated downstream or the local wildlife is taking care of my issues.
Oh, the things you do to make a job bearable.
Mhm.
We got
Well,
about 3
folks,
minutes.
Yep.
I was just about to say we've got a little under 3 minutes, fixing to be a little under 2. I do have work in the morning. I've got to go to bed, even though, thanks to the scintillating conversation for the last 4 hours, I am still wired. So I'm going to have to take a ibuprofen PM so I can go to sleep before the alarm clock goes off. I hate to do that, but sometimes it's necessary. It's all right. So, one of the little side effects of having an overactive brain is occasionally it won't turn off when you need it to.
Occasionally? God damn, I wish it was only occasionally.
Yeah, like, on days that end in Y.
Well,
Okay.
then you get in with us and get all worked up.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chris.
And just remember about the bears you do to make a
Thanks.
job thingable.
Mhm.
Yeah. And the
Okay.
things you do. The things we do for love and a paycheck.
But I won't do that.
Yeah, you will.
Crap, it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of his passing.
Oh, God.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Y'all icons of our youth, you got to quit dying off now. We can't take it.
Especially when we're the same age as you are.
I was having a conversation with the nurses and doctor in the operating room while I was having a procedure done about it. I had to explain because the doctor knew who he was, and one of the nurses knew who he was, but the other 4 nurses, no clue. So I'm having to try to explain to them who Meatloaf is. Going through his filmography, his music, filmography, discography.
The only person who could actually flawlessly sing that song, man. And he did it without question, without hesitation. Just go, yeah, I can do that. Nobody else has been able to do it. I can do it. Fuck you did.
And the thing is, what finally got them to understand who he was, the old standard that I should have gone to first that, I didn't think of till last was Paradise by the Dashboard Lights.
Mm-hmm. That was so big.
And for me, it was always 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Rocky Horror soundtrack.
She was barely 17 and she was barely dressed.
Oh. Yes, my youth got not only bent and twisted, but totally warped. And let's do the time warp again, folks. It is about that time. And I want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank anybody that's been watching us. Thank you, Chris, who's still here, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
Now somebody's tuned in just to see the bedtime story.
Probably Joe Doe.
Yeah. Again, Dan, are you awake? Yes.
And now it's time to take a jump to the left.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry, my left and my right.
We ask the eternal question. Don't you have something to do tomorrow?
Transmission overload. System will shut down. Transmission overload. System will shut down. System will shut down. System will shut down.